In 1989, Mike O'Donnell, a basketball player at Hayden High School, is practicing shots on the court. At 17, he is one of the high school team's most promising players to pursue a professional career in the sport. After practice, Coach Murphy gathers the team for a photo, including Ned, the team's assistant coach and Mike's nerdy best friend. He also tells Mike that a scout will be coming to the game, and if all goes well, Mike could win a college scholarship and maybe even make it to the NBA. Hours later, the big game is about to start when Scarlet, Mike's girlfriend, shows up on the court. The young man is happy to see her and blows her a kiss, making the same motion as a basketball shot, but she seems downcast, and Mike goes to see what's wrong. Scarlet then reveals that she is pregnant, and this news leaves him in shock and unsure of what to do. Seeing that she will be a burden to her boyfriend, the girl leaves the court and the game begins, but Mike puts the game aside and crosses the hallway to find Scarlet. He tells her he won't leave her alone and promises that everything will be fine, because he will do everything he can to take care of her and the baby on the way. However, 20 years later, Mike, now 37, is divorcing Scarlet and has been forced to spend a few days at Ned's house. Since the day he gave up on his dream, he has lost his purpose in life and ended up taking out his frustrations on his wife and children. Despite this, he tries at all costs to get a promotion at work and believes that the opportunity has finally arrived. During a meeting, the owner of the company is about to announce the new director, but instead of Mike, he chooses Wendy, a new employee. This decision leaves Mike dissatisfied, and he confronts his boss, who is on a call, but Mike loses his patience and breaks the man's headset. Because of this, he is fired, and before returning home, Mike goes to his old high school to find his children. Once there, he looks at his old trophies in a closet and regrets that life has not turned out the way he would have liked. He tells himself that the past was much better, and suddenly, an unknown janitor appears beside him. He seems to know Mike and says that maybe it's possible to go back in time and do everything differently. Mike is surprised by this response, but when he turns to talk to the janitor, he is no longer there. Soon after, Maggie leaves the room and is not very happy to see her father, but he tells his daughter to call her brother so the three of them can spend some time together. He then takes them to the ice cream shop, but the two teenagers spend the whole time on their cell phones, paying no attention to their father. Things only get worse when he takes his children back home and sees his ex-wife destroying the garden they created together. Mike confronts Scarlet, saying that the divorce will only be finalized in 2 weeks, but she says she is preparing the site for her new landscaping business. Despite this, Scarlet shows that she still has feelings for her husband and did not want things to get to this point. He shows that he feels the same way and asks for her understanding, as he is unhappy with the direction his life has taken. Mike even shows some regret for choosing Scarlet over basketball, which hurts her even more. She then goes inside with Naomi, her best friend, and Mike leaves when a heavy rain begins to fall on the city. Halfway there, Mike sees a man jumping off the bridge and runs to help him, but when he looks at the river, he is faced with a huge whirlpool. In addition, the water shows his reflection, but several years younger. Mike is confused and tries to look closer, but ends up falling into the portal and sinking into the water. The next morning, he returns to Ned's house, completely covered in mud, and goes to the bathroom to wash up. However, he screams in despair when he sees his image in the mirror, having rejuvenated to his 17-year-old self. Ned is startled by the scream and, believing it to be an intruder, goes after Mike with his collection of medieval weapons. Thanks to his new agility, Mike manages to dodge the blows with ease and Ned ends up falling down the stairs. He then rushes to help his friend and explains the situation, but Ned knocks him down by pulling the rug out from under him and goes to get another weapon. Mike does the same and grabs Luke Skywalker's lightsaber replica, but Ned arms himself with Darth Vader's lightsaber and the two engage in a duel in the middle of the room. Mike gets the upper hand and knocks his friend to the ground, but Ned counterattacks and grabs a picture frame to use as a weapon. In it is an old photo of Ned next to Mike, and seeing the resemblance between the two, he realizes that this is indeed his best friend in a younger version. After the fight, the two sit down at the table and try to understand what might have happened to Mike. Using his knowledge of nerd culture, Ned theorizes that his friend is in the middle of a hero's journey and must go through trials until he finds the reason behind it all. First, he must seek out his spirit guide, who would be the mentor character, to guide him on this journey. Thinking about it, Mike remembers the janitor at school, and runs there to find him, but no one knows anything about this guy. Already hopeless, Mike sees a hallway with water and follows it until he finds a bucket with mops on the floor. Believing it to belong to the janitor, he tries to find him, but only sees the door to the stadium, with several students practicing shots in basketball practice. Seeing this, Mike comes to the conclusion that his transformation into a teenager is a chance to start his life over. He then decides to return to school and pursue his dream of playing basketball, with Ned posing as his father to enroll him. The two then head to Hayden High School, with Mike assuming the identity of Mark Gold. Upon arriving at the principal's office, Ned falls in love at first sight with Principal Jane and tries to impress her, but the man only makes the whole situation more uncomfortable. Mark then asks his fake father to behave himself and tells the principal that he wants to enroll in high school. Luckily, Jane believes the charade and accepts him as Hayden High School's newest student, so Ned decides to take him to the mall and buy him some more modern clothes. The next morning, Mark shows up at school in Ned's car, wearing cool clothes, impressing everyone, especially the girls. He is pleased to have made such a good first impression, but as soon as he enters the classroom, Scarlet calls to say that the divorce meeting has already started. Mark had forgotten about it and knows he can't show up there now as a teenager. He then makes up an excuse and asks to reschedule the meeting, just as Maggie shows up in the classroom. Without thinking twice, he waves to his daughter, who, having no idea who the new student is, simply ignores him. Mark soon realizes that he needs to be more careful, or he will only make things worse, and settles into his desk to watch the class. After that, he goes to the bathroom and comes across Alex, stuck to the toilet with duct tape. He rushes to help his son, who says he was attacked by the basketball team, led by Stan, the school troublemaker. To maintain his cover, Mark introduces himself as a new student, and the two go to lunch together in the cafeteria. There, he discovers that Maggie is dating none other than Stan, and decides to provoke the young man. The troublemaker takes the bait and goes with his basketball to bother Alex, but Mark steps in front to defend the young man. Stan challenges him and throws the ball at him, but thanks to his basketball skills, the young man catches it easily. Mark then gets the student's attention, saying that Stan is the typical lazy student at school who attacks weaker students to prove his strength. For the first time, Stan is humiliated in front of the whole class, which makes Alex even more impressed with his new friend. Later, Mark returns to Ned's house, and during snack time, he tells his friend that he has discovered the real reason for his rejuvenation. Instead of starting his life over, he must act like the father Alex and Maggie needed from the beginning, even with the body of a teenager. Mark then goes to his old house to meet Alex, who is practicing shooting hoops in the backyard. Seeing his son's talent, he decides to help him join the high school team so he can have more confidence in himself. Soon after, Scarlet and Naomi show up, and Alex introduces his new friend to his mother, saying he is Ned's son. Scarlet is surprised to see how much Mark resembles her ex-husband when he was younger, but Naomi says it's just an effect of her process of getting over the divorce. She promises that all this will pass when Scarlet meets other suitors, which makes Mark angry. He then pretends to miss the ball pass to Alex and ends up throwing it at Naomi, just to provoke her. The next morning, it's Mark's turn to try to get close to Maggie, but as soon as he enters the room, he finds her kissing Stan. As if that weren't bad enough, the teacher gives the students a lesson in sex education so they can learn how to protect themselves during puberty. Mark opposes the idea, saying that young people like them are not old enough to learn these things. In addition, he sends a message to women that they should only go through this experience with someone who truly loves them. In the middle of his speech, Mark ends up venting and says that some of them may become parents in the future. He then concludes by saying that nothing is as rewarding as holding your own child, something that moves Maggie and the other students. They then decide to follow his advice, but Stan thinks it's all nonsense and says that after class, he will teach Maggie a very different lesson. This enrages Mark and he attacks the young man, but ends up getting beaten up, and the two are taken to the principal's office. Despite this incident, Mark is willing to continue helping his family and returns to Alex's house, where he ends up meeting Scarlet. She is still surprised by his resemblance to her ex-husband and invites him to her house to show him her new project. There, she talks about her idea to renovate the garden, and seeing an opportunity to get closer to her children, Mark offers to help her. At first, Scarlet refuses, thinking that the young man is interested in her, but Mark says that extra work will help him earn credits at school. So she accepts, and over the next few days, Mark works in the garden while helping Alex with basketball and disrupting Maggie and Stan's dates. Before long, Alex becomes one of the team's players and goes to tell his mother the news. She is very proud and hugs her son, but Mark can't help himself and does the same, making the moment even more uncomfortable. Scarlet quickly changes the subject and calls them both to show them a surprise. When they leave the house, they see the garden ready, which surprises Mark. Alex congratulates his mother on her work and says he will practice some more, while Mark continues to admire his ex-wife's work. Scarlet thanks him for all his help, but says she has to leave because she has a date at a nightclub. Mark doesn't like this news, but tries to hide it, and Scarlet goes to get ready to leave. Hours later, She appears in the living room and starts practicing some dance steps when she notices Mark watching her from afar. He takes the opportunity to ask her to teach him a few steps and even puts on some music. Scarlet is surprised because the song is the same one played on her wedding day, and as they dance, she feels a strange connection with the young man. However, Alex appears in the room, saying that his mother's date has come to pick her up for their meeting. Scarlet then composes herself, and before leaving, asks Mark to deliver an envelope to Mike containing the divorce papers, and that the meeting will take place in a few days. Mark is forced to accept the envelope and watches Scarlet leave with her date to have fun together. As if that weren't bad enough, Stan soon arrives in his car to take Maggie to a bowling party, and Mark decides to go after them, along with Alex. Arriving at the party, the two see Nicole, the cheerleader, with whom Alex is secretly in love. However, the young man doesn't have the courage to talk to her, but Mark advises him to do so, as he knows what it's like to lose the girl he loved. Unaware that he is talking about his mother, Alex plucks up the courage to talk to Nicole. Meanwhile, Mark finds Maggie in another room and approaches her, asking why she is dating a guy like Stan. The girl says he's better than he seems and the two plan to move in together very soon. In addition, she reveals that she is going to leave college to be close to Stan, something that makes Mark lose his patience, and he scolds her, saying that this will never happen. The girl is confused by the lunatic's attitude and leaves, saying that he is not her father and cannot give her orders. The conversation with Maggie did not go well, and it gets even worse for Alex, who, because of his nervousness, starts bringing up random topics with Nicole. Even so, she shows interest in the young man, but Alex accidentally steps on a decorative candle, and his pants start to catch fire. Embarrassed, the young man runs to the bathroom to put out the fire and calls Mark to leave as soon as possible. The next day, it's time for Alex's debut on the team, and Scarlet goes to watch the game with her new boyfriend. Seeing the two together makes Mark angry, but he needs to stay focused and help his son in his first game. Throughout the game, Hayden High School's team is losing by 5 points, and Mark decides to give it his all to secure the victory. He then takes control of the ball and manages to close the gap, but with only 20 seconds left in the game, he is blocked by the opposing defense. The coach tells him to pass the ball to Stan, but instead, he passes it to Alex, who shoots and scores a 3-pointer. Everyone cheers for the team's victory, especially Nicole, who, to Alex's surprise, hugs him for his performance in the game. Meanwhile, outside the stadium, Principal Jane is leaving when she runs into Ned again. She tries to ignore him, but he apologizes for the way he acted last time and invites her to dinner. Faced with his insistence, Jane accepts and the two leave together in his car to a restaurant. At the same time, Mark and Alex are leaving the court, with the young man telling her about the hug he got from Nicole. Mark is happy about this, and when he sees Ned leaving with Jane, he decides to give his son some more support and announces a party at his house. However, he doesn't see Maggie around, and goes looking for her, finding her crying in the middle of the stadium. He approaches her and Maggie reveals that Stan has ended their relationship. Despite the good news, Mark comforts his daughter and invites her to come and have fun at the party at his house. Later, the whole school goes to Ned's house, who, unaware of Mark's plan, goes to an expensive restaurant and tries to impress Jane. His attempts don't work, and about to give up, he confesses that he's a nerd and doesn't know how to deal with people. He even confesses that he spent a fortune to buy a replica of Gandalf's staff, the Grey Wizard, used in the movie The Two Towers. Jane is surprised by this, but makes a small correction, saying that Gandalf had already become the White Wizard in the second part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Faced with this incredible reference, Ned discovers that Jane is also an avowed nerd, and the two soon realize that they are soulmates. Far away, the party at Ned's house continues, and while Alex and Nicole talk, Mark sees Stan trying to reconcile with Maggie. The girl no longer wants anything to do with him, but Stan insists, so Mark interferes in the conversation and kicks him out of the house. The guy refuses and even insults Maggie, provoking Mark's fury, who tries to punch the lunatic, but Stan dodges and knocks him down with a blow. Shortly after, Mark wakes up in the room next to Maggie, who thanks him for his help, but he realizes that it's almost time for Ned to return. He then tries to cancel the party and send everyone away, but soon after, Scarlet shows up looking for her children. Mark goes to her and tells her that they are both fine, with Maggie having ended her toxic relationship and Alex finally having the courage to talk to a girl. To prove it, he invites Scarlet to the balcony, where they proudly watch their son declare his love for Nicole and be rewarded with a kiss. Seeing that the young man has helped her son, Scarlet thanks him for everything he has done, and in a moment of impulse, Mark kisses her. Confused, she slaps the lunatic in the face and leaves, but Mark runs after her, saying that he is Mike, her ex-husband. She finds this absurd and leaves, with Maggie and her friends appearing shortly after, having seen the incident on the balcony and slapping Mark in the face again. To make matters worse, Ned and Jane arrive at the house and announce the end of the party, kicking all the students out. After that, Ned has to clean up the mess in the house, and Mark tries to help him, but he can't stop thinking about Scarlet. Mark believes he has ruined everything for her and her children, and now his family will be better off without him. However, Ned convinces him not to give up and reminds him that in 20 minutes, the divorce hearing will take place. Mike then decides to try one more time, and Ned drives him to court in his car. When they arrive, the hearing is almost over, but Ned pretends to be Mike's lawyer and asks the judge to hear what his client has to say. Since he can't reveal his identity, Mark steps forward and shows Scarlet a letter written by Mike. The message is a declaration, recalling when Mike first met her and knew that day that she would be the woman of his life. However, he lost his way over the years and blamed her for his own failure. Still, he realized his mistake and asks for a chance to fix things, but if that is not possible, he wishes her and their children happiness. Mark is moved by the letter and leaves, but not before leaving it on a table. Scarlet rushes to see the letter, but it is just a plain piece of paper with notes, indicating that the message was created by Mark right there. Seeing that the young man's story about being her husband may have some meaning, Scarlet asks the judge to postpone the hearing. Another day goes by, and Mark tries to accept the idea that his marriage is over and that he must move on with his life. He then dedicates himself to basketball and goes to another game for Hayden High School, with the coach saying that a scout will come to watch the game. Just like in the past, if everything goes well, he will have the chance to invest in his playing career, and Mark decides to give his best in the game. Finally, the game is about to start, and besides Alex, Mark sees Scarlet and Maggie on the court, going to sit in the stands. Before the game starts, Mark looks at Scarlet and blows her a kiss with a basketball gesture, just as he used to do when they were young. Seeing this gesture, Scarlet is sure that this young man is Mike, and in the midst of this confusion, she leaves the court. The game begins, and just like in the past, Mark has an important choice to make, to move on or try again with Scarlet. In the midst of this dilemma, he abandons the game and hands the ball to Alex, asking him to take his place. After that, Mark runs after his wife, unaware that the same janitor was watching everything from the stands with a look of pride. The game continues and Alex enters the field, while Mark runs down the same hallway where he made his most important decision. Suddenly, he feels a strange energy around him and returns to his original age, reuniting with Scarlet, who is thrilled to see him again. Mike can't explain how it all happened, but the experience made him realize that he didn't want a fresh start in his life. In fact, he wanted a second chance with his family, and he asks for forgiveness for the way he treated Scarlet and his children. Finally, Mike promises to spend the rest of his life trying to make up for lost time, and Scarlet accepts, with the two reconciling with a kiss. Finally, Mike discovered the purpose of his hero's journey and returned to his family. In addition, he gets a job as a high school basketball coach and goes to tell Ned the news, but finds him in a romantic moment with Jane. Despite the awkward moment, he is happy that his friend has also found someone to share his life with. Mike then says goodbye and takes his things back home, having reconciled with his past and ready to build a new future. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.